Good afternoon, guys. I know I had said I was going to try to post fairly frequently. And with the end of the school year happening at home, things have been kind of crazy and gotten away from me. But we're back. And I know last time I kind of introduced you to all the tools that I use, the basic tools that I use to make my cards and art and my ornaments. So today I'm going to show you some of the basic shapes, and what we'll do is I'm going to use some of the basic shapes to make some flowers, and we'll put them on this card. I've been making cards for friends to help them feel better, because I have a bunch of friends whose spouses are police, fire, that kind of thing. So they're having a really tough time. Some of them, their husbands can't come home. They're not allowed to try to keep everybody healthy, both at their job and with the families. So I've been doing cards, and I've been trying to send them to friends, but again, things get away from us. So today I'm going to show you basic shapes. We're going to make some basic, very simple flowers. I'm using these are my the papers I use for cards. They're actually 1/16 of an inch. They look almost like hair. So they're a little bit tricky, but they're really good for cards because they're nice and thin. So it makes them harder to crush in the mail, and it also makes them so they still fit in an envelope. When I am making things, I generally don't use scissors. I will tear things, so I tend to work in halves and quarters and thirds of a strip. So what I'll just do is take it, and you can do any size will fold, it's paper. So, and I just take it down, and it doesn't have to be exact. And then I just pop it in half. And then, because I'm going to do some fairly small flowers, because with this thin paper, it's really hard to do anything of large size. It's usually my cards and my tags that this paper is used on. I have a lot of it. I don't know that I'll ever run out. I haven't had to buy any in a long time. So whenever you order cards from me, from the website, or for custom work, I've done large batch thank you cards and such for after funerals and weddings and stuff like that. It typically will be made with this very thin paper. I cannot cut this myself. The 1/4 inch and bigger I will cut myself. The 1/8 of an inch and 1/16 of an inch I buy pre-cut. So again, I'm going to use my just plain slotted quilling tool. And then I have my foam. This is the foam mat that I use, the foam workboard that I use. It has a whole lot of holes, so you're not constantly having to take them out. A lot of the harder plastic ones, you have about 5 or 6 holes of each size. So if you're doing a larger project, it can be a little bit difficult. So what you're going to do is you take your slotted tool and your paper, and you're going to insert that into the slot. If you can see, it goes through the slot, and I usually bring it all the way down to the end, and then all you're going to do is spin it. It's kind of like if you were spinning a pen or something in your fingers. So you spin it all the way down, and when you get to the end, it'll be in a circle like that. You hold on to that end, and you can pull it off. And as long as you hold the end, you should be fine. You don't have to worry about it going anywhere. So then at that point, you take it down into your workspace. I'll slide this forward so maybe you can see a little bit better. You're just going to drop it into that hole and release it. And what it does is it releases kind of like a spring. The circles on your workboard keep it into the size that you want it. And I will continue to do that. Most flowers that I make are either 6 or 8 petals. If I'm going to layer them, I may do 3 to 5 or 4, or however many I want to do for that particular flower. But I think we're going to do 8 on this one because it's a nice round number with 2 strips. So we're going to go, and what we're going to do, these are basic loose coils. If you've heard, I'll show you a bead, which I'll talk about beads. They're also called tight coils. And I'll show you how to do that for the center of a flower. So all I'm going to do is just continue to wind these into circles. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 8 pink circles here, pink coils. So what we'll do to get those out is this is where a nice sharp pair of scissors comes in handy. These have almost a needle point. You could draw blood with these tweezers. Sorry, not scissors, tweezers. So you're going to try to come down, and this is where the foam comes in handy, because you can kind of take the point of your tweezers and push it into the foam to get around the paper. When it's hard plastic, it's really hard to get some, especially with the small paper. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab it, and I don't know, let's see if you can see that. You have a little tail there. So that's when you get your glue. If it's a good glue, it's very thick, makes it so it sticks really, really well. I use Eileen's Tacky glue, just these little gold things. I think you can get them at the dollar store. They're great. And then in my needle bottle. Generally, when I'm working, I will keep this either standing on end with the cap on or laying down so that the glue is down towards the end. So you're just going to put a small dot of glue on there. You don't want too much, because then it'll just squish everywhere. And then you just smooth that down. If you want it to stay down nice and tight, I'll take my tweezers and just kind of flatten it and hold it there for a minute like this, so that it gives the glue a chance to bind. So there we go. So that is a loose coil. It's just a standard loose coil with the end tacked down. So what we'll do is we'll just keep going through, and again, using the tip of your tweezers, just slide it between the paper and the foam. Grab it, a little bit of glue, little dab will do ya, and then slide it back down. And you're going to do that with all 8 of these. And then in a minute, we'll shape them and make them similar to, a spring flower. Not quite a daisy. We'll do a pointed flower here in a little bit. But we're going to just keep working through all of these and get them all glued down, and then we'll shape them. All right, as you can see, I have 8 little tiny circles here. And what we're going to do before we shape those is I'm going to take this pretty butter yellow, and we're going to make the center for our flower. So similar to the way a daisy or forget-me-not or buttercup, that kind of thing, we're going to make our flower have the petals and then have a tight center. So what I'll do is take this. If I were to make the circle with this full thing, with these tiny little dots, the center of the flower would be bigger than the petals. So we're going to take this down and we're going to quarter it. So again, I just fold it in half and rip it and fold it in half again. And we're going to make what's called a tight coil. I also call it a bead. I use it in just about everything. I use it on cards. I use it in my artwork. I use it on my ornaments. It's very handy especially if you want to attach something. So on my ornaments and stuff, if I want to put on a crystal or some kind of a jewel on the cards, I can do do an acrylic stone or some glitter glue. And all you're going to do is you do just like you normally would, and you'll spiral it and spin it with your tool. But instead of letting it go and putting it in, you put a little dab on the tail, and so you're going to glue it while it's still tight, unreleased. That's why it's called a tight coil. I will then take my scissors or my tweezers and use that to flatten the edges, so that now, hold it with the tweezers so you can see. It's just a tight, smooth little flat coil. So we're going to use these to make our flower. Now to make circular things, any circular thing, whether it's a mandala, a snowflake, which snowflakes, while they're not circles, they are circular in design. They they're symmetrical. You want to make sure everything is evenly spaced. I will use this. Now what this is called a snowflake template circle. And I have it's in a Ziploc bag on top of a cork board. So I have a big piece of cork. It's probably 1/2 inch thick. It's to hold pins. I will use straight pins to hold all my stuff down in place while the glue dries. And then I just zip it in, and when the pins poke too many holes in this, I get a new one. So we're going to take our little petals, little tiny petals, and our little flower center. We're going to take some straight pins. I keep mine. They were hand-me-down, so I inherited them in their sucrets box from my mother. I don't sew, but I do use lots of straight pins. I generally will buy the ones with these heads on them. It's much easier on your fingers. So all we're going to do to put this together is we're going to take that center we made, the yellow center, and we're going to put it in the center of the circle. And a lot of times on these, I will use 2 straight pins so it doesn't spin. So we put 2 pins down. So it's right in the center, kind of the center of the bullseye. And then our flower petals, we're going to make what's called a teardrop. I a lot of times will take it and I will grab the circle and hold it so that, there we go, it goes in the focus. I'm holding the center to one side. And then all you're going to do is you take your finger, you just pinch the top. And what that does is it creates a little teardrop, which is really easy for simple flower petals. So we will do that to each of our things. It's easier too to use your tweezers because it's hard to hold, especially these little things. For some people, it can be very hard to hold them that small. This way you don't have to worry about smashing it out of shape. You can hold the center where you want it. I always like my center to be to one side or the other. I will warn you if you do it this way. If you pinch too close to the tweezers, you will get corners on yours. And I did one a little bit too much. You can see it has kind of a flat side on it. So we have to be careful, especially when they're this small. So we just pinch one side, pinch one side. It's very simple, very fast. Just pinch one side. So now we have all of our petals shaped. So what we'll do is we'll get our glue. I usually will do this with my fingers. The tweezers are a little bit harder. What we'll do is just spin that out of the way, a little dot of glue just on the tip of that petal, like so. And then you'll come down, and these templates have lines. You can go, they're quarters and eighths, or they're also sixths and thirds. So we're just going to do, since we have 8 petals, we're going to go on one of the quarter lines first. And then I will take a straight pin and get that kind of where I want it and pin it. And then I use the line to hold the other side. I tend to do the quarters first, and then I'll go back and put in the other 4. It can get a little tricky, or at least I've found it's a little tricky when you try to go straight around the circle. You sometimes get to the other side and realize you were off somewhere. So we'll go around and do the fourths. Do the noon, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And then go back. All right, as you can see, I've got 4 petals already on. It does begin to look kind of like a porcupine while you're finishing up. So what we're going to do is we'll go back through, and it's a lot easier to do these last 4 because they're really only going in the spaces. So what we'll do is I generally will put it down, try not to get glue on the plastic, just so this makes it hard to remove, and then take the pin and pull it in. And then again, you have a line guide on your template for the eighths. So I guess that'd be like 10:30. Where the long hand is on 10:30. So I will try to get them pinned in there. And then we bring this one in. And again, I just put my pin in it and slide it into place. And pin in and just slide it in between the 2. Oftentimes when you're putting these last couple petals in the spaces in between, you don't necessarily need to pin the back half of the petal because there's really only one place for it to go. You come around, petal in, and then a lot of times I will take these outside ones out once everything is in place. So as you can see, we have our little flower. A lot of times once they're put together and you put those last petals in, if you give it just a second, it will be fine to take off. So while we're waiting for that to dry, what I'll do is we're going to show you how to do, we're going to make some leaves, and I'll show you the shapes we'll use generally for just basic leaves. So we're going to get our foam board again. We'll close up our pins. And this time, of course, since we're doing leaves, it's a nice kind of an emerald holiday green. We don't need 60 bazillion leaves. And typically with, the exception of flowers like tulips, daffodils, such like that, a lot of times your leaves are kind of relative in size to your flowers, your petals. Whether they're in a stalk isn't generally too big. So what we'll do is we'll make 2 leaves. There it is. Oh, things hide from me on my desk. So again, with your slotted tool, we're going to do the same thing we did for the petals, but we're only going to do 2. If you want to, you could make them bigger. I'm going to stay in scale just because it is going on a card. And we can do some petals or some leaves. So I'm going to do 2. And again, you put them in your size, whichever size you choose. And then we're going to grab them and we're going to glue down those edges. There's an important thing with the needle tool or the needle glue bottles. The glue will dry in here. So generally speaking, if I'm not actively going to be using it, I will put the lid cap back on, even if it's for 5 minutes, because it's not unusual to have to take the cap off and stick a straight pin through it to try to get the dry glued out. If it gets too thick in the bottle or the glue gets too dry in the needle, I have had bottles that eventually split. The plastic in the bottle splits from the pressure. So I try to keep the lid on as much as possible. So we have 2 of these. And what I can do, so we're going to do something similar to what we did before. But instead of using our tweezers, we're just going to use our fingers. And you're just going to kind of make a box around your coil. You're just going to pinch just a little like this. So what that does is it makes almost an eye shape or a marquee shape. So that can be a basic leaf, or if you want to get kind of fancy, what you can do is take it and while you're pinching them, kind of go like this and make it like an S. And what that does is that gives a curve to the leaf. Now you can see that. So what we'll do is we'll do that to this one. And again, just kind of put it between your fingertips and pinch just a little. And then to make the curve, hold the ends and kind of make an S with them. So it gives you kind of a curvy look. So we'll put those to the side. Whoop, and get our flower again. Now we're going to remove our pins. Whoop. My glue bottle is split. It is spitting. It'll do that too, especially since it's kind of warm in here. I don't know if you all are in Ohio, but it's no joke when you hear about Ohio's weather, that it's, fall at 6 a.m. and spring at 10 and summer at 3 and winter, about 5. So yesterday we were 80. Today it is rainy and I believe 60s. Tomorrow we're going to have a high in the 50s and rain and a low in the 40s. I don't think we're getting down to the 30s, but we may be getting close. So I have these. These are just blank craft cards. I get them at Michael's. I do have some that I get pre-printed from, I think I get them from Avery, who makes the stationery bases that you get at the higher end stationery bases that you can either print on, you can have them print them. So my baby cards and my wedding cards are all pre-printed for me. These, I will use a rubber stamp to decorate them. I have a whole collection. I get them everywhere. So what we're going to do is we've got our card and it's folded. We're going to take our flower, and I just use my tweezers to grab them. And then you can either use your needle bottle or just the standard glue bottle. I do know some people on some things you can put the glue down and dip into it. This glue is thick enough and these are delicate enough that if you were to try to dip an open coil like this, like the petals, it'll actually pull the center out and misshapen it. So all you want to do is make sure there's a good amount of glue and an air bubble. So you don't have to worry about being too neat about it. You just want to make sure you get the centers of the coils. Kind of put glue all over everywhere. I liken it to my daughter spreading her Nutella or Biscoff cookie butter onto her pancakes. Just smear it everywhere. Though, don't lick your fingers like she does. This glue doesn't taste as good. You want to make sure you get the tips. So you want to make sure you get the tips of the petals to tack them down and the centers of the coils so they don't jump. So you'll see it's nice and coated. And then I think on this one, I'm going to put this up here in this top corner. So I put it down, and then you just go and you press it. And if you look, that doesn't add that much height to this. So speaking of envelopes and post office and mailing and such, these, because they're so shallow, they aren't very tall, they don't smash well. And on cards I tend to leave, if you look at these petals, there's a fairly thick edge. So I'll leave those on there. So next we want to put in our flower, our leaves. So again, I grab them with my tweezers, these teeny tiny little things, and I'll try to grab flat. This one, if you look, you can see it's kind of gone three-dimensional on us. We're going to tack that down. So again, glue, glue, glue everywhere, like a kid making a sandwich, trying to butter toast. So you have a good amount there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this peeking out from between some of the petals. So if you see. Now your second one, I tend to be a little, I don't like to use obsessive, but I like things to be symmetrical or to match. So since that one's face going down that side, I'm going to have to put this one, for me, this one logically goes over here. Now it will bother me a little bit. I did not turn this white, but you just glue it back down. So you have this cute little flower in the corner. And what you can do is you can continue to go through. We could, if you wanted to make a daisy, all you do is when we made that circle for the leaves and pinched it, so you spin it, and I'll do this really quick. So we have our tight bead here, and you can release that. You can just let it go. And what it'll do is it go to as big as it's going to go. And glue that tip. So as you can see, this one is a little bigger than the others. What I'll usually do is where that is glued is where I will pinch. It makes a nice sharp edge. So and again, frame it in your fingers. Just pinch the edges. So if you wanted to make a daisy, you do this in white, you have a daisy petal. So you do the assembly the same. So you do a loose coil, and glue your ends down, pinch it out, and then have your center be a tight coil. So that's how you would make just a basic little flower. You can make them in any color or anything. They do really well on cards. You can do them on frames and do whole bouquets of different styles. So what we'll do is next time we will work on finishing out this card. We're gonna make some more flowers, do some daisies. I'll have some more daisies on this, and then I'll show you how to do stems and a couple different leaves. All right. I hope everybody has a good week. Happy Monday, and I will see you next lesson. Thanks. Bye, guys.